of a broken dawn. Steel towers hum, but the wild runs on. A shadow moves through the circus below, half machine, half beast, with a violet glow. They thought the outback was lost to the flame, but a dingo returned with a coat in his veins. Save up on dingo, racing through the night, claws on chrome, eyes burning bright, guarding a future the core can't control, running on data but driven by soul.
What is up, everybody? Good evening to those who are joining in from Australia, and I can see here that a lot of you are joining at some really weird times. We have got Kim Jones joining in at 4:30 a.m. in Chicago, and we've got Turda. Am I saying the name right? You're checking in from Scandinavia, 11:30 a.m. in Sweden. Welcome. 10:30 p.m. in New Zealand. Welcome, TNK Galaxy. I see that you've been here before as well, and it looks like on the leaderboard. Welcome to the Rig and Slim Chi, who's making dinner. You are currently ranked number 1. Not that I've been tracking the leaderboard too much, but welcome to the live stream. It's really great to have everyone here. Yeah, sleepy or drunk Yankees. Look, love having people join in on these live streams. This is the 7th one, funny enough, even though I have like 80. Well, we are about to reach almost 100 videos so far, but 7 live streams isn't too bad. Hopefully in the future we're looking at probably 2 a week, so we'll probably get some updates on this leaderboard as well. 2:30. Look, welcome to Temporal Alpha. Look, I honestly did not think anybody, because when I put up the times on YouTube posts, I did actually put in the US Pacific time, and I did apologize in advance for anybody joining in from that area. And it's crazy that someone actually has at almost 3 a.m. But look, thank you very much for joining. Hope everyone enjoyed the new intro song, by the way. I've been getting so many comments about how people have been enjoying it quite a bit. Welcome, The Toucher. And that actually reminds me, for you know what, starting off, obviously I would like to thank people like The Toucher and Kurt, who've been supporters of the channel by either being patrons or YouTube members. Obviously the channel is almost entirely fan run, so, and I couldn't have gotten to this point without you guys. And for those of you who have decided to actually support the channel this way, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate the support. And The Toucher, it looks like you've reached the purple dingo level on your membership. There is one more where it changes into something else, and I think only one other person has it at the moment. So hopefully we'll see you at that level as well. All right, so we've got a few topics planned for today, and you know what? It's pretty obvious that what I was planning to talk about wasn't a fun topic by any means. However, I hope everyone enjoyed my last video on Greta Thunberg. It was a rough topic, but I decided to make it slightly funnier, and I think people did enjoy that as well. So I hope you have watched that video. If you haven't, yeah, check it out after the stream. Hopefully it brings you a few laughs. Actually, one other thing, the last stream we did last week, I believe we broke a live streaming record for the channel. We had around 70 people watching at the same time, which is fantastic. Hopefully, we get to that point tonight as well. Almost at 40, so hopefully that keeps going up. All right, excellent. Welcome, Natalie. Unfortunately, I cannot read. I don't know what you. It doesn't auto translate for me, so I'm not entirely sure what you've said there. But welcome. Okay, so we're obviously starting off with not so good news. The Manchester Synagogue terror attack. Look, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I mean, I have said many times, and it's not just me who said this. Quite a number of creators, ex-Muslims, I think even Jewish people have been sort of following this. And I guess if you're looking at the mainstream, left-wing institutions and whatever governments, especially these days, they are mostly on the side of, I guess, the Palestinian side, and I've explained the reasons quite often. It's a demographic reason. Lots of funding going there. However, unfortunately, I did say that it is likely, and this isn't the first one. The only reason the toucher, why it hasn't happened in Australia is the fact that they have all been foiled. It's not that they aren't happening because no one's actually trying. People are trying. In fact, ASIO, which is the Australian version of the CIA, they actually put out something not very long ago that said the only reason something really bad like this has not happened in Australia is because they allow mass protests to take place in Australia, the pro-Palestine or pro-Gaza protests, because they claim that these protests are sort of like a pressure release for a very large group of people. Obviously, the way Australia doesn't have an extremely large and radicalized Islamic population, unlike the UK, so that also does actually help. However, it's not that there aren't threats. There are multiple threats in Australia. Synagogues, Jewish schools, these have armed security 24/7. They, I believe government funding is provided, private security is provided. So things have changed quite a bit. And where attacks have occurred, they essentially just tried to burn synagogues down with people inside them. And guess what? These attacks, it turns out, were entirely funded by Iran, and the Iranians actually sort of outsourced it to criminal elements in Australia, like the Alameddin family. If you aren't familiar with them, they're one of the biggest criminal organizations in Australia, and ironically, they are Muslim. And while they're not selling drugs and getting up to, whatever other criminal activities, they're also sending a lot of their members to fight for extremist groups. And this particular organization is actually responsible for sending some of their members to an organization that you're all probably familiar with, which has a black flag and started off in Syria and Iraq. But going back to the Manchester attack, as I said, it wasn't something that we didn't think wouldn't happen. In fact, unfortunately, and it's crazy that I'm even saying this, it was more than likely that it was something that was going to occur at some point. So hopefully, actually, I actually just missed that notification there. But Rui Patricio, thank you very much for your pledge. Highly appreciate that. Yeah, now it's appearing on my screen actually. It's actually appeared on the screen 3 times. So thank you very much, Mr. Patricio. That was excellent. I always love the support. The channel is entirely fan funded, so people supporting me always makes me happy, and I'm very glad that you've decided to join up. Now, going back to Manchester, like I said, it's just unfortunate that it's happened. And this is like I've been going pretty crazy on X if you've been following me there for a while now. And what I've been saying is, so the day this attack actually happened, all of a sudden, these people like Keir Starmer and the left wing establishment, not only in Great Britain but even in places like Australia, Canada, all these places that essentially rewarded Hamas with a state not very long ago. They all started coming out of the woodwork and they started saying, guess what? This is real sad. And the crocodile tears started flowing. Unfortunately, it's very hard to take these people at their word. I mean, I'll be honest, I do generally want to give people the benefit of the doubt. But in this case, I was just finding it very difficult. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I don't know if maybe I can see this on my profile where if I go to the replies, I can. Where are they? This was a few days ago, so I might have to scroll down slightly. But effectively, I was just saying, look, it's yeah. I'll come back to that actually. Yeah, this is effectively what I was saying. So David Shoebridge is a far left Greens politician here in Australia. Like I was saying, like say for example on October the 3rd, this is what he said. But if you look at this post and just sort of scroll back a little bit to the next post over, all he's talking about is how bad Israel is, and it's that sort of thinking that where they don't want to outright say Jew bad or Jews bad, so they sort of twist things a little bit. They walk on this really fine line where you can't immediately label them what they actually are. And this is why I actually spammed this image on a few of their posts, including this image. But I will come back to that because there is a very specific post that I wanted to actually start off with, and that person is where is maybe. Oh, here we go. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this demented person. She put up a post on that day. Where, and this is crazy how, oh, here we go. Let me just read it for you. Prepare yourself, all right? She goes, horrified to learn of the attack outside a synagogue in Manchester where 4 have been injured. So we didn't know that people had died at the time. And then she goes, my thoughts are with those affected by this criminal act. We're yet to learn of the motivations behind the crime. Which is really odd, by the way, because at the time, images were coming out and there's this guy with a huge beard, kind of fat, like, and he's got his finger pointed up like this, and he's got whatever was tied up to his torso. I can't recall. I don't know if they're confirmed they were explosives. And he's obviously got the weapon. It was clear. Like, I actually made sure that I didn't say anything immediately before we had further details, because there have been some incidents like that happened in Australia. For the Australians here, you would remember what happened in Bondi, where people jumped to conclusions around it, and there were a lot of, innocent people got blamed for it. So I didn't say anything, but when I saw that picture where that guy's sort of like this, I was like, hold on. You know what? I don't want to say it right now. We'll hopefully wait a little bit longer, but it looks exactly like what it looks like. And this person, I'm assuming, had actually seen it, but at the time she was like, we're yet to learn of the motivations behind the crime. But this is the part that really got to me. Right after the attack, she goes, but I blame Netanyahu and his live-streamed genocide. This is like I feel like you've got to be just pure evil to say something like this. Initially, I was going to say, oh, this person might be real dumb or stupid, but I don't think so. I genuinely think there's a type of evil inside these people for them to say this. Because take away the religion, take away ideology, take away all of that. This is a person who lives in Britain, a British person, and her first thought when her fellow countrymen are getting attacked and unfortunately killed in one of these attacks isn't to say, you know what, I'm the attacker's to blame. The attacker must have been a horrible person. She didn't say anything. She didn't want to condemn the attacker. Nothing about that at all. She immediately goes to blame a foreign country, a foreign issue. That is crazy to me. It's like it's similar. It will be something like if I'm in Australia and something bad happened, I immediately go, you know what? I'm not gonna blame whoever did that. My immediate tweet would be, well, what about the Amir of Qatar? Because I kind of hate him. Well, I don't hate him. I don't think he's a good person. But I would immediately blame him. It genuinely is doing something like that. It's crazy. Like, who does this? So unfortunately, this was actually one of the first things I read, and it did piss me off quite a bit. Peter Jackson, we will get to that. And thank you very much for making the Lord of the Rings movies, by the way. Yeah, this is what I said. I said the exact same thing. I was like, why didn't you blame the actual attacker? That's a bit interesting. And one might wonder why that might be. Because I'm not actually sure. Like I said, it's very hard for me to immediately go and accept that a lot of the condemnation or a lot of people saying, oh, it's so bad, it's so terrible, when you can just go the tweet under whatever they're saying and find that all they've been talking about, I don't know, for the past couple of months has been Israel is so bad, Jews are so bad. Do you not realize that you're part of the problem? Like, we've reached that point where they're always like, all right, if there is an Islamic terror attack, they're always like, oh, but we shouldn't blame all Muslims and whatever, which is correct, by the way, because a lot of the blame actually lies within the religion itself, and we can blame that for starters. But a lot of individuals are actually peaceful and don't want anything to do with that. But here we have an attack where, due to a foreign conflict, people are getting murdered, killed in terror attacks in Britain. And these people don't see the irony behind that. It's because these people are blaming all Jews. Do you not see the irony behind that? Of course they don't. Because their intentions aren't pure. And the other picture that I did want to show you guys was actually this. Because immediately after, we've got we've had multiple people. Oh, that post has now been deleted. Oh, that's very interesting, because that was this really somewhat reasonably larger news channels that actually came out, and guess what? Their first thought was to blame the right wing for this attack. Look, Islam is a right wing ideology, regardless of what people say or what people have been trying to label it as. However, the right wing they were talking about was more the Tommy Robinsons or the Nigel Farages, or the conservative side of politics. They were blaming them, and then they essentially took to saying, oh, but think about how Muslims are going to be blamed, or there will be Islamophobia. And Norm Macdonald many years ago actually put out this really funny joke, and it's sort of become a meme where anytime an Islamist terror attack happens, people just start spamming this, because people put out posts but unironically like this all the time. And especially like the past couple of days, I've seen this so many times. I've just been taking this tweet and putting it under anybody saying anything similar. So it essentially goes like, if a nuclear device was to essentially go off in America and there's mass casualties, imagine the backlash against peaceful Muslims. Like, it's a pretty funny joke, but unfortunately, a lot of people have just been saying this quite unironically, and it's just been quite crazy for me to see. It's almost unbelievable that they would resort to this. Here we go, another one right here, where this person saying the constructive response to the evil of an anti-Semitic attack. Why are they saying it's, well, okay, it is an anti-Semitic attack first and foremost. That's absolutely the reality of this, but it's also an Islamist terror attack. No, like I have also noticed another thing about this this particular incident has been that nobody has been really blaming or calling it an Islamic terror attack, because we've seen the same people essentially go after, say, Israel, the United States, or many Western countries, and essentially blame colonialism and whatever other ideologies that they hate these days for many of this. For example, I think in terms of the Israel issue, they talk about colonization and white supremacy, a number of reasons like this, but they don't get to the root of this. Why is it an anti-Semitic attack? Who's done this? What has driven them to anti-Semitism? Can we talk about that? Well, of course not. They're not going to. And yeah, this person has also unironically sort of said, it's not to spread more hate and to try to drive communities apart. I understand the sentiment, but it's also important to realize that communities have been split apart or driven apart for like 2 years now. Where have you been? Would it be the case that if I looked at your account right now and scrolled a little bit, am I going to find you driving these communities apart as well? I bet I would. So, this whole thing about coming together and not to look back at this evil, whatever it might be, it's just utter delusion, because we've got to be able to say what's actually happened here. And what's actually happened here is somebody who's been really impacted by the war in Gaza, who's been driven by the religion of Islam, has gone and done exactly what the religion says or tells the followers of said religion to do. That's just a fact. That is the fact. And the other thing I've noticed is a lot of people have been. If I scroll up a little bit, maybe I'm gonna find this. Where is it? Because somebody said something like, "Oh, here." So this is the Home Office, and by the way, with the Home Office, I did put out a video that actually shows you the Home Office is really ideologically captured. It's got a network of like almost 1,000 Islamists in it, who if you're, say, persecuted minority in an Islamic country, and if you try to apply for asylum in the United Kingdom, say you're a Christian, in the case that I actually showed people in the video I made, that was a Christian woman. If you're an ex-Muslim, or you're a Jewish person, although if I were a Jew, I'm not claiming asylum in the UK. I might as well claim asylum in Pakistan in that case. So in this case, the Home Office actually would reject you. They would claim that, whatever you're saying about persecution in your Islamic country of origin is not true. And this has actually happened, where the Home Office was actually taken to court and they were defeated, and that's when these documents were sort of revealed to the public, and we found out why they had done so. But here they have put out a post which says, "We are protecting Jewish communities," and I go, from what? What do they need protection from? How about we talk about that? Honestly, like I'm not even being facetious here. Like I really want to know What are you protecting them from? Cats? Dogs? The wind? Trees? What are we doing here? Who are you protecting them from? Please tell us. Security measures in place. For what? Who's the security for? Can you tell us? Of course not, because you're not gonna drill this down to the crux of the issue, are you? You're not gonna say what's actually happening here, because obviously it's the UK, so they're not gonna talk about it. But oh, by the way, on stream, congratulations, Barack Obama and Mitchell Obama for 33 years. What a lovely couple. Anyways, going back to this. Sorry, I got distracted there. Going back to this, they just refuse to talk about it. And I think someone actually, this is a video where someone actually calls out the Deputy Prime Minister, which I'm going to play for you. Yeah, Obama and Mike. Although the toucher, I'm not going to go ahead and be like Candace Owens, where I'm calling Macron's wife a man and betting my entire career on that, because I really don't want Mitchell Obama to take me to court over such claims. But anyways, I'm just gonna play this for you because they get shouted down by someone in the crowd.
Therefore, I have great pleasure in introducing our Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy. And before I do, please, please, we know how we all feel. We know how we all feel.
Yeah, that's the correct response, honestly. I mean, why? One has to wonder why they're getting booed and why they aren't very popular and why no one believes what they're saying.
Palestine! Shame on you! Shame on you! Go to Palestine! Leave us alone!
Go to Palestine. He should.
A children's school was closed today. You have allowed this to happen.
You have blood on your hands!
You're all guilty. You have allowed 2 acres in Manchester on the street. You have allowed it. You are all guilty. We do not want you speaking here today. You do not speak. Do not speak. You do not want you speaking. Shame on you. Shame on you.
That's him, by the way. That's who they're talking about.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
Shame on you. Shame on you.
Enough!
Empty words. We want action.
Okay, I know how I feel. Let's give the time for...
Okay, well, we're not going to play that part. But, I mean, is that gentleman... Oh, actually, guys, I think we've broken the live stream record. We're almost at 80 now. So yeah, thank you very much everyone for joining. Yeah, we've just broken a channel record for the most concurrent viewers, and hopefully we are on our way to 100. Now, can we really blame these people for the anger there? Like I would be pretty angry as well. Because it is reality that for the past 2 years, not only it's not just the UK, places like Australia, Canada, the UK, the US, well, the US to an extent, because obviously the US still is the biggest supporter of Israel and funds Israel to a significant degree, but In terms of other countries in the Anglosphere and even Europe, perhaps, I've said this many times. A lot of these countries have allowed, through mass immigration and demographic change, organized voting blocks, organized sectarian voting blocks. Obviously, the modern, perhaps neoliberal understanding of how the world works is, the civic nationalism, which I still do believe in, But we should not be, we should not kid ourselves. If you talk to, say, a Muslim in a largely migrant Muslim area, the chances are they are going to vote for one of them. They would always preference that over, say, a Caucasian, a white person who lives in that area, especially if the policies are effectively the same. And we saw this in the UK because they got really spooked, and rightfully so, because the Muslim Votes Matter movement got 5 seats in the last election, and that was off less votes than Reform last time, and they primarily targeted Labour seats, left-wing seats, progressive seats. These were seats that were previously seen as relatively safe because, obviously, for obvious reasons, the Red-Green Alliance, Muslim voting blocs generally just vote for the progressive parties, the left-wing parties, because they don't really understand Islam the way, say, perhaps people on this stream, ex-Muslims, a lot of us, we know how it works, but perhaps a lot of them do not really understand it, and it's almost assured voting bloc where they'll win every single time. Why would such an area vote Conservatives who want perhaps to control migration and prevent certain types of migrants from entering the country? They won't. So they were always so sure that they would win these seats until, of course, everything changed since post-Gaza war. That is why these governments have effectively just said, look, guys, do whatever you want. Protest, do it. You want to take over the Sydney Harbour Bridge? Go for it. Just put, 100,000 people over there on the bridge, shut down the roads. We're not going to do anything. In fact, you guys can wave around the flags of Hezbollah. You can wave around posters of the Ayatollah. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to ignore it, and we're gonna pretend like there's nothing wrong with it. And I know, I can't remember which state this was in Australia. I think it was Victoria that sort of banned Hezbollah flags, and so people came out with yellow flags. And even that was such an eye-opener, because I was just like, these are people that are just so confident in their support, in the morality behind supporting an organization like that has been responsible for killing a lot of soldiers that belong to some of the biggest allies of Australia, for example. But that doesn't matter. And I guess in this case, that is why people, for example, in the UK are so angry, especially the very small Jewish population there, which I believe numbers in around the 300,000 mark. And they effectively are saying, look, you have allowed this. You have allowed a lot of anti-Semitism to effectively go unanswered. And to be honest, even if we look at online discourse, it is very hard to counter it, because I've said this to some larger influencers or larger accounts on X who were like, oh, guess what? These are bot farms in Pakistan or whatever, and I'm like, it's not really genuine. It's not a bot farm. They don't need a bot farm, because at the moment there's like 1.5 billion Muslims in the world. Why would they need a bot farm? That's a ton of people. Even Pakistan's arch enemy in India has like 200 million Muslims. It's one of the most populated Islamic. Well, I had to stop myself there before I labeled India an Islamic country. You know how nationalistic those guys are. They're gonna hate my guts if I had said that. But if I didn't want to piss them off, I would. but it is one of the most. It is one of those countries that has the highest number of Muslims in the world. Obviously, there's places like Indonesia as well. These they don't need bot farms. Like, it's just so many people. Like, it's very hard for people to imagine living in a place like Australia, for example, how many people that really is. And if they're always just going off, like, you can look at these accounts, like, I'm sure you guys are familiar with accounts like Adams and the Bushra Sheikhs and Sheikh Suleiman and all these people, and Jake Shields. Who's that famous Instagram playboy? Dan Bilzerian. Yeah. I mean, obviously, not top of my head, a person like that. People like Dan Bilzerian, for example, all these people are finding insane popularity by talking about this issue. And why is that? Because of that very significant, essentially, well, fan base now that are going to watch them, and they could say anything. Like, genuine blood libel, they can say anything about this issue. And these people they'll lap it up and they'll share it, and they'll essentially, make that the mainstream position, or at least give the impression that is the mainstream position. Even in Australia, for example, there aren't, like, obviously you guys are watching my stream right now. Like, I would say I'm one of the very few people who've publicly, essentially, I don't consider myself an influencer. I just do YouTube. But I would certainly be one of the very few people who actually come out and say these things. And I'm saying this as an ex-Muslim. Like, I cannot see very many, even in mainstream politics, who would essentially come up and say, you know what, like, there's something wrong here. Something really, really wrong here. When we're allowing some real bad things to be said out in public. And on top of that, we're allowing genuine anti-Semitism that probably, I can say with a degree of certainty, we've probably not seen this level of anti-Semitism since World War II, or that time period. Like, what other time period since then has seen something like this? I guess people are really aware of what led to that, and have tried much better, I guess, to prevent certain ideas like that from propagating. But here we are again. This is a really funny thing. And yes, Camilo Estevez, Harris, and I actually did a video, a long form talk on my channel quite recently. We spoke a lot about these issues, if you wanted to check that out as well. Now, the other thing that I did want to touch on is the person who did this. His name was Jihad. Now, obviously, a lot of people have... This wasn't a surprise to me, but it seems like a lot of people have been surprised that someone could be named Jihad. Now, if you didn't know already, this is not a... This is... What was his full name? Jihad Al... I'll just go that. And the name should come up. Where is it? There is a very specific... Oh, here we go. Alright. So this is a lie. So this is Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood. I've actually spoken a little bit about her previously as well. And this person... We'll watch this video first, and I'll explain this to you guys.
Al-Shami attacker has been named as Jihad al-Shami. That obviously has been translated to struggle of the Syrian. What do the authorities take from that name?
Oh, well, I mean, I was very surprised to discover that name myself. Actually, as a Muslim, I've never heard someone being called Jihad, but it is the name that he was born with. That has always been his name. He was not somebody
that's not a to use it. That's not a nom de guerre, as they would say in France. That is what the man has always been as a child who grew up with this name to become the adult that took the attack. Is that right?
It is my understanding that is the name he was born with. It is not a name that was adopted later in life or changed recently. That is his name from birth, and it is certainly the name that we have on the records that we have for him.
pause there. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, jeez. That is a... What have I paused on here? Oh my. Oh, I've actually skipped that now. That was a scary face. Okay, let's leave it. That. Her eyes are shut. Yeah, I know. I was like, yeah, if you've just been watching the stream, yeah, might have. If you just joined the stream and I had paused on that face, yeah, not a good start, unfortunately. But so this, I saw a lot of people talking about the issue around the name, and I don't actually think it's a very big point, and I'll tell you why. When I was growing up, I actually did know a few people whose name was Jihad, and Jihad didn't necessarily, like, you never associated that with war or anything nefarious. Generally, obviously it could mean the jihad that everyone's generally familiar with in the West, but I am finding it very hard to believe what she's saying is true. I feel like the name jihad is actually quite common, and people don't really think twice about it because they don't really think, oh, it's this crazy, I don't know, it's not this conspiracy. In fact, I was actually I put out a funny tweet, and I did say there was this kid that I knew growing up whose name was Jihad, and you know, I must have been in my single digits in terms of my age, and I just remember this kid Jihad was just a massive dork. Like, it was very weird, one of the weirdest kids I knew, and now thinking back to those days, I'm thinking, yeah, that kid was heavily autistic, like significantly autistic. and that's one of the jihads I knew, not obviously, and I just felt like people getting really surprised and talking about the name as if it were some sort of conspiracy. No, I have said it's just a very unfortunate coincidence, and that, you know, it's a really common name. However, there has been an update to this whole situation. See, I now don't think it was some sort of coincidence, and I'll tell you why. This is Jihad's father, Jihad al-Shami's father. He is obviously an asylum seeker or refugee. And he's now a trauma surgeon in the NHS. And his posts suddenly made me believe that this might not have been a coincidence. And obviously, like, it you know, when you have a child, you don't exactly know how they're going to turn out to be. However, looking at his posts, this family is not normal. This family is not moderate at all. This family is actually quite extreme. So let's have a look at some of his tweets or Facebook posts, especially on October 7th. I believe this was, yeah. So this was all in Arabic, and it appears a number of news organizations have now gone in and they've found. I'll actually open this up as well. So I actually saw this because the family initially came out and they were like, "Oh, we condemn this attack. We fully distance ourselves from it." And where was it? Actually, I'll come back to that tweet as well because that was very suspicious. I don't know if they have put out the statement here, or maybe it's just paraphrasing here about how the family was, you know, it really shocked them. It is what the statement said from the family. But if you actually go down over here, something interesting pops out. This was only a few days ago. The father of the jihadist, no pun intended, goes, "Bad news for Israel in the next few days. Unfortunately, no one can prevent what is written." Now, what did he mean by that? I genuinely want to know. What did this person mean by that? What's he talking about? Does this seem like or sound like someone who's a moderate, someone who's perhaps really, really sad about what's actually happened here? And that's where I suddenly started questioning this name. I started questioning why this person might have been named that. Because the father who sought asylum in the UK and has been granted that, and the jihadist actually grew up in the UK as a result, I think is a pretty radicalized person. Genuinely. Like, I'm saying this as somebody who grew up in an Islamic environment, and I feel like especially if we go over here, what this person's saying, like right after October 7, talking about how the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade did all of that, Israel is not left, blah, blah, blah. They were celebrating. They were just openly celebrating. Obviously, this person wasn't in the news at the time, and not very many people would have been aware, but he would have felt confident enough to put out a message like this because his intended audience also probably agreed with him. Genuinely. Like I'm not saying this to rile people up or anything like that. I feel like this family that's just put out a statement they're not being genuine, and I think they are, as a family. Of course, I can't speak for everybody, but I strongly feel like they are probably on the more extreme side, because extremism doesn't just come out of nowhere. Even when it comes to Islam, it doesn't just come out of nowhere. There's always someone who radicalizes the other person, and it sort of grows inside people. And looking at this, I just strongly feel like there's no way we can say that these people are distancing themselves from this attack, or that there was no perhaps weird motivation behind him naming his son Jihad. I am very, very suspicious of this. Genuinely. And I do not believe that these people like this, they'll ever be in a situation where their loyalty is more to, in this case, Great Britain over whatever ideas they have. It's a fact, for example, in the United Kingdom, more British Muslims joined the Black Flag organization over the British Armed Forces. It's not even dual loyalty, is it? Though, like it's they're just loyal to whatever they've allegedly run away from. That's why I don't generally think. My initial thoughts were essentially, you know what, Jihad is a common name, weird coincidence. But now I'm thinking, I'm going back to the family, and I'm like, why exactly did these people give their son that name? Like, did they radicalize their son? Did they effectively raise their son in a radicalized extreme environment? What have they been teaching to Mr. Jihad? Like, I think it's extremely important that we or British authorities now get to the bottom of this. And I'm going to say something. I feel like this person should be deported, denaturalized, and deported. Of course, they're not going to do it, but I think after seeing all these posts, after seeing essentially, effectively that he's not exactly a moderate person, I think they should be deported. I mean, what benefit is there? What is the benefit? Why is jihad a common name? Because it doesn't necessarily mean, a violent thing. It's more about a struggle for God. It's more a spiritual thing rather than an actual armed struggle. It can mean both, but people don't necessarily name their children jihad in the sense of armed struggle or violent struggle. It's never been like that. And it's not. I have never thought about it. Like the little autistic kid, or my autistic friend from when I was young, whose name was Jihad, for example. Yeah, I never thought this kid's named this because he's about to do something bad. I mean, I doubt he would have done anything bad anyways. I mean, he was mostly drooling, to be honest. But anyways, going back to that, I genuinely do think people like this should be deported. There's zero reason to keep them amongst the general community. It does nothing to benefit the people of Britain. In fact, the more people you keep like this, even after there's ample enough evidence, I feel like these tweets are enough for me. Genuinely, I feel like a tweet like this after October 7 is enough for me to be like, all right, this person's never going to integrate. He's been here for a while. Yes, he's a surgeon, but do we really want a surgeon like this looking after people who go to his hospital, for example? Like, how confident are we that he wouldn't do to his patients what those nurses from Australia, if you recall, said they were doing to their Jewish patients, for example? How confident are we? And here's a genuine question for the chat here. Would you go and see this person? Would you have this person as your doctor? Genuinely, like if you given the choice, not you've been in a car accident and you had no choice, but if you had to go and see a GP, for example, would you see this person? I certainly would not. Like, especially knowing what he's saying, I would not. Absolutely no chance. Because I do not know what his intentions may be. And obviously, if you guys didn't know already, medical malpractice is a huge reason as to why a lot of people die. So in this case, you know what, it's gotta be tough to prove as well, maybe. But I wouldn't feel confident in this person as a doctor. I would not. And that is exactly why I feel like these people should absolutely be deported as a good option. Now, I think we have to sort of go back to the issue of after all of this had happened. Oh, actually, this is another thing I didn't cover. So obviously I can't say the word because of YouTube, but I will use the TikTok word for it. Lucy Connolly, if you aren't aware, is the British citizen who was sentenced to prison for, I believe, 2 years, and she actually served a part of it for mean tweets or a mean Facebook post. She did not get bail. The judges declined her bail. The jihadist, it's actually, like, every time I say jihadist, I'm just like, no pun intended, because this guy's name is Jihad. He was out on bail for doing what the Prophet Muhammad's infamous for doing. Yeah, instead of using the TikTok word, I'm just gonna say that, because I think that's rather appropriate, actually. He was out on bail for being Muhammad, and I just don't know how that's possible. And it just makes the situation even worse, doesn't it? How is that possible? What, like I know judges in the UK are so harsh that they're punishing people for effectively mean tweets, and I believe the UK is now one of the top countries. Oh, welcome, Harris. Great to see you on the stream as well. I just don't know how you get bail for this. I feel like where are the women's groups, by the way? Where are the feminist groups? Why haven't they come out and condemned this? Why haven't they questioned the courts as to why this person, Mr. Jihad, could have gotten bail for being Muhammad, being a true follower of Muhammad. Like, that is a question. People who are worried about women's safety in a Western nation like Britain should be asking this question, because this sets a pretty bad precedent. And also, this makes you wonder what other types of crimes have these people been let out for, and it brings us right back to two-tier justice. No, like genuinely, this is a prime example of it, because if you recall, the person who tried to attack that Turkish gentleman who got done for Islamic blasphemy in the UK with a knife, who was on camera, by the way, he also got bail. Once again, two-tier justice. And now we find out this person was also on bail, and I'm starting to sort of see a pattern. Why are these people getting bail? Are we going back to the whole thing about with the grooming eggs, for example, where the British institution is quite scared to prosecute and put these people in jail because they don't want to upset a significant part of their supporter base, which just so happens to be effectively the entire Muslim population in the United Kingdom. Like, Ronisha May, it is Jimmy Savile like. I prefer to call it very Muhammad like. I think that's significantly more appropriate in this case. And yeah, I guess that was the other crazy part of this story, and perhaps going back to the actual shooting. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it turns out that with the shooting, obviously Mr. Jihad didn't have a gun or anything, so he wouldn't have been able to shoot any of the victims. But it does sound like the police shot some of the victims in the process of trying to stop this guys. And so obviously, you know what, they wouldn't have done this on purpose. It would have been just an accident, an unfortunate accident. But like, I'm genuinely having a bit of trouble brushing this off instantly as an accident as well. Like, I'm not trying to make this out to be some sort of conspiracy or anything like that, but it's just really odd to me. Like, what are the chances that would have happened? I actually put out a funny tweet like, oh, Keir Starmer, like, you not even your police force can resist just making this whole issue of anti-Semitism even worse. And unfortunately, it is true, and I believe, like, you know what, that makes it effectively almost 50% of the victims were actually shot by or killed by, in this instance, law enforcement. It's a shocker. Yeah. And I just don't know, like, it shows you how bad things have gotten in the UK at the moment. Now, obviously, we have to go back to the whole issue around what's next, and to give Keir Starmer a little bit of credit, because not even he can get out of this one. The pro-Palestine protest movement are actually going to go ahead. They were actually protesting on the day, and it did sort of turn into a bit of a celebration. I think they were protesting even harder once this news started coming out, and already making excuses on places like X. But they have planned to essentially do more protests right after this incident. Like, they do not care. And I always say to people on my channel, with a lot of these things, we have to sort of disconnect ourselves from the fact that whatever is happening in the Middle East is happening, and look at people that it's impacting as your fellow Englishman or your fellow Australian or your fellow Canadian. In this case, British people have lost their lives, and yet other British people are wanting to continue these protests. Obviously, a lot of it would be celebration by a lot of the parties involved, but they want to continue doing it, and it's not even inappropriate. It's just downright evil. And if Keir Starmer has to come out and say, "Oh, guys, this sounds like a pretty bad idea. Let's not do this," and you know what he's like he's got a lot on the line, Mr. Starmer. Even he's come out and said this, and yet they're not stopping. In fact, in Sydney, I believe, to mark 2 years since October 7, they want to effectively go back and protest or do whatever they want to do on October the 7th. Like, how crazy is that? Like, what does that say about these people? Because they have been pretending to be to be on some sort of moral high ground for 2 years, and yet they can't help themselves. And I have shown this to viewers of the channel many times before, of these people celebrating on October 7 or the day after, the types of tweets they put out on October 7 or the day after. Like, the world hadn't even fully come to terms with what had happened, and they were already celebrating. And yet, we're looking at it now, like today. They're on this moral high ground, and yet they can't help themselves. They just have to. Even after what's happened in Manchester, they want to go ahead, protest. Actually, even show up to Keir Starmer's house the day after. And that, you know what? This is why I've said once again in many videos, there's no limit here. There's no appeasing them here. Like, no matter what you do, you cannot make peace with these people, appease these people, because the actual goals aren't being communicated. The actual goals, and I feel like everybody knows. Like, people in this chat know. Guess what? All the mainstream institutions, the media, they all know what the intentions are. Alright, like, they don't want a two-state solution. That's been clear from day one. They've been chanting about a one state. They've been chanting about the 1948 borders. Those are their intentions. They've been chanting about, from the river to the sea. Obviously, like, the Arabic version is quite different. That the lefties at these protests aren't unaware of the Arabic version. They've been chanting the Khyber chant at these protests. They've been taking posters with the rocks and trees are going to talk to Muslims about Jews hiding behind them. They've been taking posters that talk about this hadith to these protests. Like, from day one, the intention has been clear. Like, and I'll be honest with you guys, I'm quite sick of us playing this really silly game where everybody sort of pretends like they don't know or they aren't aware. Like, it's been 2 years. Like, it's time we speak about the extremist elements, the realities behind the pro-Palestine movement, because I do have a bit of Palestine fatigue. And I'm sure a lot of the world does too, especially, in a place like Australia and even the United Kingdom, where a lot more than just this conflict going on. People aren't living the best lives. People are getting priced out of houses. People they're going through probably one of the worst cost of living crises in their entire lifetimes. And yet, like, this is the main issue. That's what everyone's talking about. Entire elections are happening around this one issue. And honestly, people are tired of it. And yet, we still don't want to talk the truth about this issue. Like, we don't even want to talk the truth about, like, if we go back to people getting angry at the Deputy Prime Minister, they're rightly saying, we're angry because you've allowed this to happen. And they've allowed this to happen because of mass immigration from places like, I don't know, Afghanistan and the Middle East, even Palestine, Pakistan, Islamic countries, where a lot of people don't necessarily want to believe in Western values or two-state solutions, and their main intention really is the entirety of Israel getting turned into Palestine. Obviously, they don't know the specifics of what's going to happen afterwards. I actually did an alternate history on this, where the infighting just makes that version of Palestine also into a terrible place, essentially. But I'm really tired of, even after such a terrible thing like what happened in Manchester happening, that people can't openly just speak truth around what's actually happening, what the actual demands are. And this goes back to what I said in my last video. If you haven't seen it already, about the whole issue of genocide. Where is it? Like, I was like, where is it? The tragedy is that ordinary Gazans pay the price while their supposed champion people, but Hamas keeps walking away, and if the worst can never beg to keep the kill. It's loudly insisting this is a genocide. Fine, let's take them at their word for a moment. If you really believe that genocide was happening, wouldn't you cling to any chance to stop it? Yeah, this is the other thing that's really come out of it, and you see all these people still protesting. They're rocking up to Keir Starmer's house, even though that he's rewarded the Palestinians with a state before anything had even happened. The hostages weren't returned, the war hadn't ended, Hamas hadn't given up, they hadn't been demilitarized or de-radicalized. Nothing had happened, and Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom decided to just reward them with a state, and Hamas declared that a massive victory for themselves. Now, and this is what I'm saying. Like, these people, they have been saying that it's a genocide for so long now, but when it comes to actually going ahead with this new deal, they were like, "Oh no, let's not stop it." Like, doesn't that really tell you everything you need to know? Genuinely. I can't recall of an instance where, in historically speaking, people going through an actual genocide were like, please, for the love of God, don't stop it. You're about to wipe out this entire population of people, but don't stop it, please. Or people outside were protesting for that to not be stopped. Doesn't that really say a lot about these people? I mean, it's pretty crazy to me. Perhaps one of the crazier things I've heard recently from the pro-Palestine movement, really. But and here's the question. Yeah, the cat lady, you are also right. And in fact, the thing about that chant is, when they say the river to the sea, the lefties at these protests, they say the next sentence is Palestine will be free, but the Arabs right next to them aren't chanting that. They're chanting Palestine will be Arab. What does that mean? So what happens to the Israelis who live in that area if that entire geographical piece from the river to the sea is only going to be Arab? What happens then? What happens to the Jews who live in the middle? suddenly that opens up a can of worms that they won't openly engage with. And I have said this many times. I don't know if you guys have seen The Wolf of Wall Street. Perhaps you can Camilla, your message just got retracted. I don't know if you deleted it or someone or if it's YouTube's own filters. And that reminds me, I always forget to say this, but when you are in fact commenting, be mindful. I'm not deleting any comments or anything like that. But do be mindful that YouTube has filters, and if you say something a bit too spicy, it does get automatically blocked from appearing on stream. So that might be what happened to that message there. But oh, Kurt, I genuinely don't think they get to be dhimmis. If anyone, I know there's a few people from Israel, and I know of Jews from other countries like Australia listening here as well. But if I've got to think about this situation a little bit, and we spoke a lot about the whole idea of dhimmis in Islamic countries, I don't think, say there's this wild scenario where Israel loses, and the Arabs or whoever defeats them take over. I don't think the Jews are going to be offered dhimmi status. Now, you can tell me your thoughts about this. Let's see. Here you go. All right. Let's see. Like, this might actually be the first poll I've done. I'm gonna say a fat no. Because there's this element of revenge, and it's not a sure thing that they would get immediate dhimmi status. And if you're unaware of what dhimmi status is, just a quick explainer. That would be I think we've just hit 100 concurrent viewers. Thank you very much, everyone. That is a new record for this channel. We've never hit 100 before. 3 figures. Glad to have everybody here. Welcome to the stream. If you're new here, and if you're not new here, and if you've just joined perhaps in the middle of it, I would still like to welcome you all. I did my welcomes at the start for people who joined up at the very start, but I would like to give a shout out to, once again, the people at the top of the leaderboard. So we do have a top fans thing. So essentially people who join the live streams pretty much every single time. So at the top we've got Cool. Okay, is that the rig? But you're number 1 at the moment. Kim, you're ranked number 2, and 99. Oh, obviously Kurt. They don't make your actual usernames appear, but you guys are the top fans, ranked 1, 2, and 3. So thank you very much, and welcome. But sorry, I got distracted there once we hit that 100 figure. But if you didn't know already, dhimmi status means if an Islamic army or whatever it might be invades a non-Muslim country, takes over and defeats them, the people in said country, they effectively have a few options. If they are of the Abrahamic faith, so Christian, Jewish, and actually even Zoroastrian, because that was how it was historically, they are offered the following choices. You can convert, you can pay this very humiliating tax. It's generally priced really high as a humiliation, and essentially it's more like a protection racket. But it's high enough so that you're essentially forced to convert in the end. Or the third option is to get sent to Allah, effectively. For the non-Abrahamic believers, they do not get the option of paying said jizya and becoming dhimmis. They only get the option of convert, or, their head departs the rest of their body. And the people who do in fact pick the option of keeping their religion and paying said tax, they are what is effectively called dhimmis, and they are second, perhaps even third class citizens, because in Islamic states generally women are second class, so this will be even beneath that. But in case Israel gets conquered in some crazy alternate reality, I do not think they'll offer them that option. I know a lot of people have actually said this. Like, I think there have been even interviews in the West Bank where they asked people what they were planning to do to these people, and they always go, oh, there'll be dhimmis and they'll just have to pay jizya. No, I don't think that's what's going to happen, because there's an element of revenge, for a very, very long time. Fizzy, yes. Sorry, unfortunately I was reading out your username, but you are currently ranked number 1 as seen by your badge, and yeah. So thank you very much for essentially joining every stream and being part of them. Always happy to see people enjoying these. So yeah, in this case, I highly doubt this will be offered, and I think it will be quite violent, whatever outcome that might be. And that sort of says a lot about why I strongly feel like, I've always been for a 2-state solution before the whole Gaza war erupted, before October 7th. I've always said, and I've said this before even on my last live stream, I said, hey, look, I do believe at the end of the day, the important thing is for Palestinians to be de-radicalized and driven towards more economic development. And that's perhaps how they're going to be able to coexist with the Israelis as their neighbors. But yeah, it would, a lot of re-education needs to happen. And I always look back at, Imperial Japan, for example, after World War II, and they were really extreme. The Japanese, like, it's crazy that they even got to that, were like that when you think about them now, creating cartoon, like animes, like One Piece, and the Japanese who invaded China, for example, they were crazy. They were extremely radical and extremely violent in their ideas, and yet they got massively defeated militarily, and fortunately, they were able to de-radicalize, and within, like, what was it, 2 or 3 decades, there were some of the most developed countries in the world with one of the biggest economies in the world, and they were producing some of the best cars in the world, and to this day they continue doing so. And I do feel like, I mean, before October 7th, that was always the idea that I had. Until now, I realize, wait a minute, not a lot of people do actually want that. In fact, a lot of these pro-Palestinian people, they actually want one state, and I don't. And we know what that means, and it's not pretty, and it doesn't result in an economically developed country, regardless of what they believe. It doesn't de-radicalize anyone. And yeah, Germany is another one as well. Japan's not going to do that. Hesda, I hope I'm saying your name right. The other example would be Mongolia. Like, a lot of people are apologizing, for past sins, but Mongolians just build massive statues of Genghis Khan to this day. They're pretty proud of it, and you know how brutal they were historically. And this is effectively why I simply don't think where we're at is a good choice, and I feel like the New Deal, and that's what we've got to now talk about. Where is it? This is the update. So Hamas has now effectively gone ahead and agreed to the deal, but apparently they do want to negotiate. Now, I'm not entirely sure what's left to negotiate. Genuinely, well, like, what's left? The plan's pretty sound to me, and release the hostages now, like, immediately. I mean, what else is there to do? Yeah, Nina, that was the unfortunate, perhaps even ironic part, isn't it? Like, they effectively devastated the Islamic Empire at the time, the biggest one at the time, I believe. And yet, at the end of the day, they're converted. But I mean, today, to be honest, Mongolia is a very significant country. They're just, almost a pariah state. China and Russia. I wouldn't think they're that significant anymore. But yeah, it is very ironic. And I do now want to go back to this issue of the new Gaza plan and sort of figure out, sort of show how Australian News is effectively reporting on it. So let's see what Mr. John Leons has to say.
Hamas's statement, and Donald Trump has said that he believes Hamas is ready for peace. For lasting peace, he says, and that he has demanded that Israel immediately stop the bombing of Gaza. So that's major breaking news. President Trump, as we see there, based on the statement just issued by Hamas, he says, immediately stop the bombing of Gaza so that we can get the hostages out safely and quickly. We are already in discussions on details to be worked out. This is not about Gaza alone. This is about long-sought peace in the Middle East. What has prompted this comment from the president, which is big news, ordering Israel to stop bombing, is that Hamas put out a response to that Donald Trump 20-point peace plan that he announced earlier in the week when he was standing alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And Hamas has said that they have accepted two of the key points of that 20-point plan, the immediate return of the hostages, of 48 hostages. 20 of those are believed to be alive, only 20. The other 28 tragically are believed to have died in custody or as hostages. And also they have supported the handing of government in Gaza over to what they call, Hamas calls, an independent technocrats, group of technocrats based on Palestinian national consensus. However, there could be a sticking point here with Israel because Hamas says that for the future they support a comprehensive national position of which Hamas will be a member. Now, I think that goes against everything Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government have been saying since this war started almost 2 years ago. But the really significant thing, of course, is Donald Trump's intervention a short time ago.
Yeah, look, obviously, perhaps one of the bigger developments recently, but I remain perhaps how's the best way to put this? I'm slightly pessimistic, but I'm also hopeful. That's where I'm at the moment. I don't believe that Hamas are going to give up very easily. There's a lot for them to lose, and they have been in power for a very long time now. And Camilio, well, you know what? Like, obviously the ABC gets a lot of flack, but when they do report just the facts, as any news organization, especially taxpayer funded, you expect them to just report the facts. When they do that, they're pretty good, and that's why I actually put this on. Yeah. Nathan 99. I want to get to that point actually. Yeah, now it looks really silly. Australia, Canada, France, the United Kingdom, they all look really silly to me because they effectively rewarded Hamas they've rewarded Hamas of the state before anything had been done. And it's not really like, if we really want to get to the nitty gritty of this, Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom, and France, they don't really have a say in this, do they? It's only the United States and Israel who actually have a say in this. That's what I think. And obviously the people they're negotiating with, and in a sense, I almost feel like Middle Eastern countries like Qatar, obviously on the side of Hamas, the UAE. I genuinely believe some of these countries actually have a lot more sway than a country like Australia. Like Australia, we're on the other side of the world. Like who cares what Anthony Albanese has to say about this issue? Okay, you rewarded them or you recognize the state. So what? What changes? Nothing changes. The war hasn't stopped. Nothing stopped. Like, it's just empty words. It's symbolism. Like, it doesn't change anything. So in this case, obviously there's now a big deal, and I think obviously this all still hinges on Hamas returning the hostages, and I believe the deadline was tomorrow, Sunday. and hopefully they get something done. But they have also come out and said, look, we have lost touch with a number of other factions who did have some of the other hostages, and we don't know where they are. And therefore, I'm not entirely sure that it's going to be as straightforward as they're hoping it would be, because they're not going to see any... they simply have no idea where a lot of these deceased hostages probably are. And they've been militarily defeated, effectively, to such a degree that they've always had to keep moving, hiding in tunnels like rats, and where else are they going to hide the hostages either? In fact, a lot of hostages were hidden in just general civilian apartments with families. Like, a number of people were. I do remember watching one of the hostage rescues, and it was just a normal apartment, like where some of the wealthier Gazans live, and that's where they rescued them from. So I do very strongly feel that it's obviously not going to be as straightforward as possible. However, it would be great to get everyone who's alive out of there first. That would help. What's this thing about bacon? Yeah, bacon's pretty great, guys. Not very healthy, especially first thing in the morning, but really, really good. Yeah. But I've read some of this plan around what they're planning to do around demilitarizing Gaza, handing the entire area over to Palestinian technocrats, and I believe the PA are going to come in as well, and a lot of Middle Eastern countries are going to be involved in the rebuilding of it, and there'll be like a peacekeeping force, effectively, that looks after security, and the IDF are going to sort of be there at the same time, and slowly this peacekeeping force is going to take over. It's going to be a slow process, but that's what they're hoping to do. On paper, it looks good, but I think at the end of the day, they've just got to release the hostages, and obviously from Israel's side, they've also got to stop bombing them for a while to have this happen. And I do think this is perhaps the last hurrah. I just don't see how they can come to another ceasefire deal. The only other ceasefire deal that I feel like that could happen is if this one falls through, the only way this is stopping is once the entirety of Hamas is militarily defeated, 100%, like just entirely gone. I just don't see any other way out of this. So hopefully this goes through, but if it doesn't, then we're looking at a pretty bad time as well. And Palestinians will suffer. The Israelis will suffer. The hostages will suffer. Everyone suffers. No one wins here. And that is why I've always said, you when a deal like this is on the table, like what is left for them to lose? The entire place has been... There's nothing there anymore. People... Like, look at how they're living. Like, why continue this war? Like, you could have always stopped it at the very start. You didn't even have to start it to begin with. But just like the protesters, as I said before, who bizarrely do not want to accept this deal because they want to have a genocide continue? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Anyways. And look, the other thing actually, which Dr. Larry, I've realized is, I feel like, I don't know if there was any details around this, but I strongly feel like the Israelis probably shouldn't allow Hamas to parade around the hostages like they did last time. Like, print out these big posters, have, force the hostages to wave to the media. Like, it's all propaganda. It was very weird to see. I just feel like they should not allow that. Absolutely not. Like it should be part of this deal that, you know, when the hostages are released, like they're allowed dignity, and it's done in a way where the intention's actually good. That is what I hope. Last time it was just, and I remember some of the deceased hostages last time. That mother and her kids, they actually messed up even the bodies and that, and it was just this whole thing. It was just so distasteful, and it was for everybody to see. Like it was just this thing about propaganda. Like it was a whole propaganda thing for them. Like, and I hope this time both the US and the Israelis have considered this and are going to prevent that. I've tried very hard to actually avoid putting any of that in my videos. Actually, like I just find it extremely distasteful. Yeah, they do not have any shame. Absolutely not. Now, after this, obviously my other point of discussion was Greta, but I did want to put up another poll because I've just used one poll and I'm already liking engaging people like this. Let's see what people think. Let's see what the viewers think about this. And I would love to hear your thoughts around this. Actually, let's just see what the ABC has to say about this while the poll's happening.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of those remarks on social media, John, from Donald Trump, that caveat at the end, Hamas to remain at least part of a governing body of Gaza, what does all of this mean then? Does it genuinely mean an end to the war in Gaza?
Well, the interesting thing is that Donald Trump's reacted very quickly to that Hamas statement, and having lived for many years in Israel and been there about 6 times since the October 7 atrocities by Hamas, I know that the public mood in Israel, certainly with this government as well of the Netanyahu government, will be they will absolutely react badly to that view, Hamas's condition that they will be a member. They have made clear. The Israeli government has said they have 2 main aims for the war, and first is to get those hostages back, alive or dead, because they knew many of them had died, and secondly, that Hamas would have absolutely no role in any future governing of Gaza or have any military capability. And so for Donald Trump almost to come in over the top now, and for him to say he believes Hamas is ready for lasting peace, those words will certainly not be well received by the Israeli government.
Yeah, I mean, and he used that word peace, I note, in capital letters numerous times in that.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons I was more cautiously optimistic, and I did say to people just before as well. Hamas were democratically elected, and they've been in power for almost 20 years. Why are they just going to leave immediately? Like. They want to be, like, it's crazy to me. They want to be part of the whatever comes next. But this is where I do agree with the Israelis. Like, I just don't see a future in Gaza where Hamas is still in power. They're considered a terror organization by most of the world. So how can they remain in power? They've made this probably one of the biggest strategic errors in Middle Eastern history by doing what they did on October the 7th. That has led to essentially the destruction of Hezbollah, the Iranians having their nuclear weapons see massive drawbacks now, and a lot more. Like, the entirety of Hamas, Gaza has been effectively demolished. And essentially, and even the Houthis, yeah, even they've suffered blowback as well. So how was this? How would anyone in in Gaza think a government like that has now caused so many of their allies to effectively fall be a good political party to keep in power or even partly be in power? because clearly they don't have the best interests of the people in their minds. And I recall that video, if you guys remember, of Yahya Sinwar, I believe, right before October 7, he was hiding his wife and kids and these massive TVs and other entertainment and stacks of money in tunnels before October 7, because he was well aware. He was very well aware. What the hell is this, by the way? This person's spamming. I don't know what that is. Yeah, I don't know. I just whatever math that was, I just had to stop it. Yeah, his time and wife, who was severely overweight, by the way. Yeah. So he was hiding these people. They were well aware of what was going to happen after they proceeded with October 7. They were well aware, and yet they went forward with it. And look at what's happened. Like, are these really the people you want to keep even partly in power? Not at all. I would kick them all out. Like, they can go and live in Qatar in their palaces. And I'm sure everyone here is aware of how rich people like Yasser Arafat and now his kids and perhaps even grandkids are. They're billionaires. Now, yes, of course, we've got to go back and talk about Miss Greta Thunberg, our favorite Scandinavian savior of the Palestinian people, trees, animals, the environment, climate change. Yeah, she's the savior of everything these days. As I said in my video, Miss Captain Planet, who's now changed to Miss Captain Greta Sparrow. I hope you guys like this photo. I actually had a lot of fun making this. Where is it? Yeah. I hope, yeah. Did you guys like this one? This was quite fun for me to make, actually. I was like, I'm trying to get this color right, because the actual Captain Planet had like this really light blue in his neck. I was like, how do I do this? Because whatever I do, she's just really dark. And then I just had to use this photo because she looks like Lord Farquaad in Shrek. Or Hercule, or He-Man, sorry. And it's just the funniest photo, and I've actually made a few jokes about this. Like, this is the look I have early in the morning after having some pre-workout and a bit of coffee right before going to the gym. Like that. This is the look on my face, right? or who was it? Who actually checked in from Bali? Who was it? Who said he was in Bali? I don't know if that person's still here. But yeah, this is a look you get when you have Bali belly. Yeah, I did really love that. Enjoy making this photo. And then I went to this Captain Jack Sparrow image as well. But this one I made sure the headband covered her hair properly as well. Gave her the hat. And it blended in really well too. What is up with this math that some people are spamming? Jeez. Yeah, those are weird. Anyways. Going back to Greta, I did want to show you guys this video. I saw this Greta. Yeah, I don't know how some bots have. Yeah, this is the video. So this is he actually speaks English, so we can just watch the whole thing.
It's pretty much an empty room. That's right. I'm inside one of the vessels, one of the largest vessels to come in this Yom Kippur flotilla. And while we're processing this boat, there's one thing missing, guys. all this aid that they were supposed to bring into Gaza, which explains one thing to me, I'm sure it explains to you, that when we and multiple other countries offered them to take this aid and bring it to the Gazans, we could facilitate its safe arrival, they flat out rejected it. And now we know why, because it was never about bringing aid to Gazans, but it was all about the headlines and the social media followings. I'm sure you guys...
Yeah, there was nothing there. I mean, my obvious theory is that Greta and her friends ate it all. But the reality of it is, it was never about the aid. It was about the media getting those headlines, those clicks. I mean, why else were they doing all of this? The aid, I feel like, was just this bit of facade. That's yeah, it was a selfie boat. I think that was a really good label, actually, for it, a selfie boat or a selfie flotilla. And perhaps Greta and her friends wanted, I don't know, like Israeli hummus or something for free when they actually got to Israel or got arrested in Israel. To me, like, whenever they've said, "Oh, we're taking aid to Gaza," I'm just like, there's so many other ways you could do this. I mean, a lot of countries like Australia and Canada did actually send aid through other Arab countries like the UAE and even Jordan, where they actually airdropped it into Gaza. And even the United States have done it. A lot of these countries have provided aid properly. Perhaps the more shocking part is, I believe the Italians and even the Pope himself offered Greta and her flotilla to essentially offload the aid through Cyprus and actually deliver it to Gaza through the proper channels. But they rejected that. Why would they reject it? And I think the reason's quite clear to me, and that is because providing them with aid, whether it be in the sort of food or it's medicine, that was never part of it. Greta is very, very good at getting attention, and the reason she's actually even on this flotilla is because she has that massive social media presence, and that's why they got her on there. Israeli breakfast: hummus and eggs and pita. Yeah, I do love hummus, and I have heard from some friends actually that the hummus in Israel is probably one of the best. I've never been, but I think there's a reason for me to actually visit and have a look at a lot of it now and sort of understand people who live there as well a bit more. Yeah, isn't that Kurt? Isn't that just shakshuka? Like what you've just mentioned, the eggs and pita, like with a bit of is it tomato sauce? Isn't that shakshuka? I thought that was a Turkish dish, unless there's a bit of conflict around who actually invented that dish as well. Yeah, all these hipster cafes and that in Australia, they do sell a lot of. They all sell shakshuka. Oh, shakshuka. That's what I thought. Is it Moroccan? I always thought it was Turkish. Yeah, but that's pretty great with pita bread. Love that as a breakfast, but very expensive too. I reckon they charge like close to $30 in those hipster cafes for shakshuka. But anyways, going back to this, I strongly feel like this whole thing about aid was just utter nonsense. Now, there was something I had actually written the script, recorded, and I believe gotten my upload ready for YouTube before this actually came out, which is why I didn't include it. But apparently, there's now some evidence that Greta Thunberg's flotilla got a bit of funding from Hamas themselves, or networks connected to Hamas. And I believe there was an organization that they uncovered. I don't know if they mentioned them. Where is it? Yeah, the Palestinian Conference for... Yes, this is it. So the Palestinian Conference for Palestinians Abroad, an organization that Israel says is a subordinate to Hamas and a representative body abroad, serving as a wing of the movement. And they suggest that the wing is charged with mobilizing actions against Israel, including demonstrations, marches, and obviously the flotillas. And the document apparently contains a list of people it says are PCPA operatives, some of whom, it claims, are high-ranking, well-known Hamas officials. Among the names on the list are Zaha Birawi, who serves as the head of the PCPA's Hamas sector in the UK. It's amazing, isn't it? Like, the UK has their own little Hamas franchise, like a subway almost, operating. Barawi is known as a leader of the demonstration flotillas to the Gaza Strip, with Saif Abu Kashk described as another Hamas operative from the organization. There's a lot of spelling mistakes. I should have checked this. And they're saying there's now a direct connection between the flotilla leaders and Hamas. In addition, they say he is linked to the Hamas organization as the CEO of Cyber Neptune, an organization Israel says is a front company in Spain. Israel claims the Spanish company owns dozens of the ships participating in the Sumud flotilla. Thus, these ships are secretly owned by Hamas. Well, perhaps they might not be directly owned by Hamas. They might be just owned by affiliates and other funders of groups like Hamas. Like, I do know that, for example, just as an Australian example, the Australian government sends around $50 million to UNRWA in Gaza every year. And we hear in a lot of these protests the whole thing about, Australia's funding a genocide, blah, blah. No, Australia actually, if you look at the monetary value alone, sends more money to Gaza than it sends. It doesn't do any foreign aid to Israel. The only connection they make, and they do this in really bad faith, is around essentially the F-35 program, which is participated in by multiple countries. And a lot of these countries, like the UK, for example, they actually took measures to ensure that, they sort of avoid directly dealing with Israel to appease the pro-Palestinians in their own countries. And yet that still didn't make them happy. So they've been going around. I'm sure you've all seen the video of them sneaking into air bases and spraying military aircraft, which is why I believe the Palestinian Action Group in the UK was declared a terrorist organization and banned. But yeah, that's the extent of it. So I am certain that some of that money, the $50 million that does in fact go to UNRWA, and we know that a number of UNRWA employees actually did participate in October 7, and in fact, Yahya Sinwar, when they actually went into the tunnels and looked at where he was living, there were a lot of bags there, including food and other packaging that had UNRWA labels on them. So I strongly believe, despite them being a UN-related organization, I do believe they just simply cannot function without Hamas, because Hamas are the de facto governing body in Gaza. Like, how does an organization like UNRWA operate within the Gaza Strip without coordinating with Hamas? Like, that's just a fact. Like, we just know that. There's ample enough evidence, and now we do know for a fact that obviously Australia would have sent money directly or indirectly to bad actors in the Gaza Strip. And I think this is probably how this has happened as well. Like, I certainly wouldn't be surprised. We know that the whole thing about drones appearing was absolute nonsense. They probably had drones from media organizations, or the so-called attack they were talking about, that was also, funny enough, one of their own flotilla members shooting a flare gun in the air. I don't know why he did that. I believe there's a few videos of him doing it, and the flare actually falls back onto diesel generator, and that caught fire. And they all suddenly claimed that a drone did it, and it was world news. And they immediately blamed it on the Israelis, and even Tunisia came out and said, "Hold on, we didn't detect any drones, and we flat out deny that that is actually what happened." But that is the sort of propaganda these people honestly spread. And now they're acting like they're hostages. I know Greta Thunberg was talking about how, let's see. I know Greta was recently talking about how the prison's not really that great, like how the beds aren't. Did I spell her name right? How the beds aren't that comfortable. Like, she's acting like she's Nelson Mandela. Honestly, like you've broken rules, you've broken laws, you tried to break into an active war zone under the guise of aid you did not have on your ships that you probably ate. And now, what are you demanding here? Are you demanding like you be treated like some sort of superstar? Like, yeah, here she is. She's that's probably, is that AI? I don't know. It could be real. But this is why dry sub sandwich with no mayo. Yeah, and she's now wanting to be treated like this celebrity checking into the Hilton. Not going to happen. Like, you're going to be treated the way someone who's broken the rules must be treated, and like an illegal alien, as Donald Trump would say, and deported back. That is how it should be. And there she is. She doesn't look too displeased there. I love this. I love this T-shirt that says "decolonize." They always talk about colonizing when they are working with some of the biggest colonizers in the history of the world. Like, this is so ironic, genuinely. Yeah. And this is why I'm just like, this whole thing has just been for those clicks, for those cameras, for the media. Nothing more than that. There's significantly more that can be done. Witch Doctor Larry, welcome to Patreon. Thank you very much for your support. Really, really do appreciate that. As you know, the channel is pretty much entirely funded through fans, and yeah, without you guys, I would not be able to do this. And yeah, glad to have you on board. Hopefully, we can connect more on Patreon as well. Thank you very much. And for the rest of you, if you haven't already, or if you have previously considered joining Patreon, it costs you. The first membership costs you less than one coffee a month, and you get access to all my videos, early access to them, uncensored videos. We have our own little fun group chat in there as well. You get access to a secret little Discord server, and I'm also actually planning to do more impromptu streams just for YouTube members and patrons, because the other day I was talking about, I'm just gonna. These are the video games that I'm playing, and I was like, that'd be actually cool to just connect with people who support the channel, and just patron and member only ones, and we can connect in a more different way, more casual than these ones. But welcome aboard, and hope to see more of you there. The Discord, I think the Discord link might be in the description, Bella. But then again, not to worry too much about it. I mean, we can also connect on Patreon, as you are a valid member on Patreon there. So that also works. Discord, there is a link on all my videos, and you can just join in. And when you join, you'll be automatically like there's a sort of plugin you automatically get, like it recognizes that you are a patron, and then you can see that secret little channel there. But anyways, I will now open it up to the Q&A section. Let's do a cool little transition. I'm assuming everyone, like all the patrons, and if you're a patron or a channel member, I don't know if you've checked out the full song for the outro. Obviously, I sliced it a little bit so that there's that little first bit and then there's the saxophone solo there, and I think people have been quite liking it actually. Some people even are quite surprised by the fact that there was that song there at the end, and that's been quite new. But I'm glad that it's been quite popular so far. And people have been liking it. Let me go through some of the questions that have been put in here prior. But if you have any thoughts or questions, just drop them in the chat, and I'll go through them as we go through the Q&A. Kurt, I actually did not see them have their system hacked for that copyright issue, but if they did, that's actually very clever. I did, yeah, I do like that. I think people like that certainly cannot be like the pushback should always exist, is my opinion. Like, they should be confronted on their opinions and their mission especially. Let's see. How many Aussie rallies are funded by the PCPA? In Australia, I do believe a lot of the protests are funded by Iran. Now, we have evidence of that as well. We've seen posters of the Ayatollah at the very front. Nobody around this person said, hey, that might look really bad when the media, reports on this story today. No one said that, and that just became global news. And more videos. I believe this was a protest a few months before that in Sydney. There were some really suspicious characters with Ayatollah Khomeini posters just marching around Sydney in one of the protests talking about, how great the IRGC is, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, this is weird. This doesn't seem organic to me. To me, it seems like this is organized and well-funded. And I think obviously that there's a lot of evidence as to a group like Greta being funded by, say, the PCPA, and I think a lot of the protest movement is in fact funded by foreign actors as well. I actually did look into the Australian, the guy who leads a lot of the Australian Palestine protest movement. I was like, this guy has not very much presence. Like, he's known as a professional protester. Who funds this guy? Like how does he earn money to do what he's been doing? Because he's been protesting professionally for like 20 years or something. How does he keep doing this? Like, this is no way to earn a living. Like, how does he do it? And I looked, and it just seemed like he was just some sort of... he sometimes did casual or part-time work at a university, but he was primarily just funded by the communists in Australia. Like, they just fund him, probably getting government benefits as well. And yeah, he's just a full-time protester, and he now leads the Australian Palestine movement. My personal investigation into this guy, I did not find anything that I could I could put out as linked to any foreign actors. Obviously, the type of information I can also get is limited because this person's not that much of a public figure. Okay, Kurt has a question. How is the Quran not considered hate speech today? Yeah, literally the first chapter in the Quran is essentially a prayer asking God to ensure that you don't end up like the Jews and the Christians. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Like, if the Quran is considered hate speech, like, would many other religious texts also be considered hate speech? I feel like the concept of freedom of religion is probably what prevents that. And that is effectively what prevents, for example, say you're a Catholic school or something, and I think there are certain protections you get from, say, having to use certain pronouns, or they can't force you to agree with positions on abortion or homosexuality or anything like that by prosecuting you. I think if you especially use that, this is what my religion says, excuse. I think you have a proper reason there, and I think if you did start to consider the Quran as hate speech, which I think it is, I think you just open up a can of worms where a precedent is set for the government to clamp down on the freedom of religion for everybody, not just for Islam. And I think that is why. KM Test Studio goes, can you also see familiarities between Islam and communism? Absolutely, I can. I think a lot of Muslims, especially those who are more on the fence about leaving, for example, I believe they're almost living like they're under Soviet occupation, but it's Islam. Like they need to show their families and friends how good of a Muslim they are. They can't really, their actual thoughts they can't reveal. It's like someone's always watching you, and you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to even accidentally speak badly about a person like Muhammad, for example. I remember when I was a kid, there was this thing where a cousin of mine, I was really young, and this stood out to me, and this is when I was actually a believing Muslim, and he goes something like, you know what, like, I'm sure Islam is true, but I'm only like 98% sure. There's this 2% chance it, you know, like everything that we believe in is completely false. And I just remember this aunt of mine. She just jumped in and she was like, nah, no way. It's 100%. Like, you know, that the sort of Soviet type of thing. Nah, you cannot say that about the party or Stalin. Like, absolutely no questions are going to be tolerated. And I feel very strongly that is always there, and that is how those two situations work. And especially the other thing is also, you always have to sort of show that you are the most valuable. Like, you're always praising the party, and it needs to be done in public. Like, everybody's got to see you do it. Like, people always question why you see, even in Western countries, like Muslims praying on streets, and there are even videos of people just praying in the middle of the aisle on a plane. You don't actually need to do this. Like, Islam doesn't ask you to do any of that. There are many things you can do to, if you miss a prayer, like, you can just go and do it at home, or even if you're traveling, there are things that you can do to make up for it. But, you know, these people, they've just got to show off a little bit, like, because in their heads, like how a communist state like Stalin's Russia would work, they've got to show everyone how committed they are to the party. And not just the party. The party actually consists of God as well. Like, they're displaying their loyalty to God as well here. So that is the familiarity I see. I think, I see a very strong one there, which is quite funny to me. Daughter Iotea says Islam has no rules against abortion. Yeah, generally the abortion rules are quite different to Christianity. I think it's slightly more lenient. However, there's still many Islamic countries that do not allow abortion, like, for no reason. Like, there has to be a reason for it. I know in the Maldives, like, abortion's not legal in that sense. Even contraception is generally available, and people do find ways to buy it. However, like, there's always questions as to why you might be needing contraception if you're not married, for example. Like, you're walking a fine line in a country like that. So there's that. When it comes to abortion. Ronisha May says, is calling your son jihad in the UK a religious freedom? I wouldn't say it's a religious freedom. It's I don't think jihad, the word itself, is related to religion, to be honest. I think it's just an Arabic predated Islam. As I said at the start of the stream, the word jihad, in my opinion, doesn't really like it's not that crazy to me for someone to have that name. I knew multiple people with that name, and I never thought of it as, oh, this person's parents might be crazy. But in the case of the Manchester attacker, now I do think the parents might have in fact been a bit crazy and extreme to have named their son that, based on evidence as well. Do I think there will be a crusade in Europe? There won't be a crusade in the sense perhaps of what happened many hundreds of years ago, but I think there'll be a massive pushback in the future. I you know, like, as much as I hate to say this, but I do think it might be, violence is perhaps hard to prevent in this case. Like, I feel like if enough people feel like there's no way they're voting their way out of this, I think that's inevitable. And you can already start seeing the cracks in the UK. Like, immediately people just, they start protesting. Like, even after Southport, granted that wasn't someone who was Muslim who did that, but you see, like, there was a pressure cooker situation there, and it exploded. And now you're seeing that with the Salem hotels, and you're seeing that with voting. And I'm still hopeful that voting is how you get out of it, with people who are strong enough in preventing the real cause of this issue, or many of these issues, and that is immigration, assimilation, things like that. They just got to do it right. And I feel like today, if they had an election, Nigel Farage would be the PM, which is crazy. And that's how much it's changed. Like, if you go back and look at the polls in perhaps, I believe, what was it, January? I think I saw a few polls today. Like, it was in January, and I believe Labour was still preferred, and it's already changed to Nigel Farage being the favourite. So I don't necessarily think there'll be a crusade, but I think pushback is inevitable. I think it will absolutely happen. But what else? I feel like that's what I mean when I say they're getting to this hopeless situation where they feel like the Tories in the United Kingdom did actually cause a lot of the issues they're facing right now. So they're no longer considered the opposition the way they used to be. Labour, you see what they're doing. They're not considered a friend to the people. And that's why I think the other day they had council elections, and I feel like 6 out of the 7 council elections were won by Reform in the election they held, and that's very significant. These are just signs, I guess, of massive change coming, and I do believe it will look like that in the future. Now, let's see. Yeah, the Toucher. I don't know how to say that name. Let's see. Yeah, look, Nathan, I just don't see how else they're gonna react. Genuinely, like, I feel like they're in a weird spot where you have if you recall the South Park episode, giant douche and a turd sandwich. You just got to choose the lesser evil. Nigel Farage probably isn't going to be the greatest PM, but he's saying what people want to hear. And at the moment, like, I remember seeing even One Nation in Australia. They they're now more popular than the populist left party, the Greens. And that's because everyone who previously voted for the Conservative Party or the centre-right party and the Liberal Nationals, they're moving over to the side who's making immigration their big issue. And I think that will... We might see some very interesting things in the next Australian election. Possibly. Let's have a look. KM Test Studio. So I will actually answer that. I'll do a detailed video on that. So I think I have now... The last video I put out was episode 82, I believe. So for the 100th episode, I am planning to do one where it's just on my experience leaving Islam, why I did it, how, you know, what I experienced living in the Maldives as a kid, how life was like under an actual dictatorship, all of that. I actually did meet the dictator when I was a child as well. Yeah, I'll just do a video as the 100 episode special, and hopefully you can, yeah, you'll get the proper answer there. But if you have a look at the first ever live stream I did touch on it a little bit, and just to give a short summary, things like it was mostly around, you know, meeting another ex-Muslim, having debates with him, and it sort of started to make me think about, okay, there are quite significant holes in the religion of Islam. How do I contend with this? Let me just go and have a look at this religion, apply a more objective scientific lens to it. And I've always been very, you know, into science, early inventors. And that's perhaps why it was very easy for me to come to that conclusion of, oh, hold on, this whole thing is complete nonsense. And yeah, that's effectively a summary. And all the miracles and that they talk about in Islam, yeah, complete nonsense. And for the people who left for this Q&A session now, if anyone tells you there's a miracle in the Quran, especially around verses predicting things like the Big Bang or how water doesn't mix, there's a number of things they talk about how, oh, these are all miracles. And then I want you to have a look at this fallacy. It's called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. It's where you like the analogy is like during a sharpshooting contest, like you point the gun and you shoot at, like you don't shoot at the targets, which could be like cans. You just walk over to the cans, knock them over, and shoot at the targets as they're knocked over, and then you claim that you did it. So yeah, that's how it is, effectively. And thank you, daughter Aotea. That I'm glad I was able to actually say it properly. Yeah, I was nervous saying that word. I do have a number of people watching from New Zealand. My videos actually. Never knew there were that many, and I have actually gotten questions when I have done videos around Canada, the UK, and Australia. Like, oh, you should have included New Zealand as well. I did cover New Zealand in the last live stream about the new Conservative Party and some of the videos we've seen of the Maori, like who protesting against Palestine and Islam, like very publicly. I was like, whoa, guess what? Out of all of the countries in the Anglosphere, even the West, New Zealand, I would have never thought would be the country where we would see anything like this, and yet there were. So that was very interesting to see. There was a very interesting question here. Ron Nielsen, a scientific lens. How about a spiritual one? I mean, I primarily applied the scientific, I guess, test to Islam. I think in terms of spirituality, the way I looked at it more was like, all right, a lot of the spiritual stuff in Islam does come from Muhammad himself. So let's look at the history behind Muhammad as a person, what he did, how he treated his followers, how he treated women, what he did as part of Islam's spirituality. And what I found was essentially someone who had major mental health issues. Like, he had OCD, he potentially had schizophrenia, he was a narcissist, he was driven by sex, essentially. He didn't treat women right. Like, this is where all that spirituality was coming from. And obviously part of Islamic spirituality does include, in fact, the otherism of other faiths, other people, and violence and conquest. And I felt like you absolutely cannot gain spirituality out of this. And if you do, then I feel like we should investigate your morality slightly more. And I guess part of the other thing around that spirituality also was a lot of it was paganism, essentially, like pre-Islamic Arabian practices just being molded into Islamic practices by Muhammad, so that it's not very hard to accept him as the new messenger of God. And this is exactly what he did to Christianity and Judaism as well. He just stole and made it easier for people to convert. But none of that really worked until he started waging war and robbing caravans. So hopefully that answers your question. Oh, Hezda, yeah, okay. That's probably a better explanation. Maybe I didn't explain that as well. Did you first become an atheist or first stop believing specifically in Islam? I just stopped believing in Islam. I didn't, because that was what you had to contend with, and because the penalty for leaving Islam in the Maldives is still death or a jail sentence, there was a lot more to figure out before I even thought about, okay, what other religions might be true, or let's think about atheism. But during the age of new atheism, I did completely identify as an atheist. My views around that changed perhaps as I got slightly more older, and now I consider myself agnostic. I much prefer to say I just don't know. I don't know the truth behind reality. I don't know if we live in a simulation. I don't know if there is, in fact, a God. But I have somewhat thought, okay, maybe if there was a God, I do wonder if he actually does care about ordinary humans on planet Earth. Like, we're just so insignificant on the grand scheme of how large the universe is. I do think about that. But I have been to Buddhist temples, Hindu temples. I've been to the Vatican. I did visit St. Peter's Basilica. And I did feel a bit of spirituality there. I did feel like I was being more spiritual when I visited those places. Perhaps not enough to convince me to convert to any of those religions at the time. But there was something there. There was a very strong human, spiritual. I don't even know how to explain it that I felt visiting those places. So yeah, and perhaps even next time I do go to Italy, I'm definitely going back to the Vatican. That was a very cool place, one of the coolest places I've ever been to. There was something really interesting here again. Pascal's wager, the toucher. Yeah, I have looked into Pascal's wager, but the problem with Pascal's wager to me is which religion specifically. Suddenly your options aren't as straightforward. Like, when you say, oh, wouldn't it be safer to, for example, be a Christian? But then you can still apply, like, but why Christianity? Like, perhaps I feel like I'm certain Islam is not true, but perhaps Buddhism is the real religion, or Hinduism, or Zoroastrianism. One of those is true. So, like, I think your options suddenly expand quite a bit, and that's my problem with Pascal's wager. Like, how do we know that the religion we're talking about as being true that you believe in so that you don't face a probability of eternal damnation. Like, how do you know that one specifically is the one you have to believe to essentially come out victorious with this wager? That is my problem. Yeah, I I don't know the solution to that. But hopefully, yes, Halo Rose 85, welcome to the stream. I don't believe this might be your first time. I'm very glad to have you here as well. Look, we're just doing the Q&A section at the moment before we wrap it up, but we went through quite a lot previously. So if you just rerun back, you can catch all of that. We went through Manchester, the Gaza situation, a bit of Greta Thunberg, and I did make a joke last time, like, oh, we might end up even talking about fitness if someone asked me, what should I do to lose weight? But no one's asked me this time. Yeah, so there's that. I'm certainly not that. I'm just agnostic. I prefer to be perhaps in the on the team that says we don't know for sure. That's where I'm at the moment. So there's another question here. The Lebanese civil war is yes, yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think I actually covered the Lebanese civil war in multiple videos, and I actually did say this is a great example. And I think we can even look at Yugoslavia as another potential future. But Lebanon, Yugoslavia, these are certainly there's certainly historical precedents for what many Western countries might look like in the near future, and these are great examples, and I hope more people learn about them and figure out why they happen. And Lebanon also was destroyed once the PLO was driven out of Jordan, and they went to Lebanon and they just destroyed the country effectively, and it's never been the same. Although Australia does have a very significant Christian Lebanese population on top of the Muslim Lebanese population as well. Oh, if you didn't have questions, Halo Rose, you caught me at the perfect time during the Q&A segment, so drop them in the chat below. Hopefully it's something that I can answer for you. Hester, yeah, it's a good question. Even with just one religion, with Pascal's wager, maybe. Yeah, Pascal's wager. It's a very interesting thought experiment, but it's also a thought experiment. I feel like the more you think about it, the more it starts falling apart. Like the wager just doesn't make sense. It's perhaps a bit too simple. I get what he's saying, but yeah, like what if with the test, okay, there's this one religion that say it's true, but the God of that religion perhaps wants you to not believe in it. He's testing you that way. How do we know? Like, I don't know. It's pretty crazy. I'm not entirely sure. It's a wager. Yeah, it's a thought experiment. It's a fun one, but not enough to convert me to a specific religion. KM Test Studio, which countries have I been to? I've been to a number of European countries, many countries in Asia. Yeah, I've never been to Africa before. That I do want to fix. That's one thing I would love to fix. And, I've been speaking about Israel quite a lot recently. Would love to actually visit and put to the test the hummus and see if what they say about hummus in Israel is actually as good as they say. Let's see. Yeah, that's a good one. Would you rather live in Lebanon or Iran? That's a really good good question. Heza, next time when we start off the stream, when there's a lot of people here, I'll put that in, see what people say. Troy, would you ever consider a career in federal politics? I would absolutely not. I think it's very hard. Like, I don't know, with my opinions on Islam and me being an ex-Muslim, I will have a good career in federal politics. Even though, funny enough, people always like to brand me as completely right wing or far right. Like, if you have a look at like what my thoughts are, like economically, like yeah, it's all left wing. So maybe people will accept that part, but I don't consider getting into federal politics. I feel like I'm able to make a bigger impact doing what I do right now, and that's what I would like to grow in the future. Let's see. Not been to Poland. Would like to check it out too. Yeah, I mean, Oman is a quiet country. Not much goes on there. I mean, I don't have very much info on Oman either, to be completely honest with you. But I can certainly look into it. I will be making a video on Christians in Nigeria soon. It's on my list to do. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll pop that in. So that because it's a hot topic, and I think it's a topic that's ignored a lot. So yeah, we'll look into that. Flick, if you rewind a little bit when we talked about that the Gaza situation, I did talk a lot about the deal, but in essence, I don't think so. I don't think they have access to a lot of hostages. I do believe that part. Where is it? Halo, your question was, you wonder if Palestinianism was the actual beginning of woke culture. Wondering if they test it first on the Israelis. I mean, you could argue it was actually the pandemic as well, around like 2020. Like, for example, in Australia, like the Australian state of Victoria was the most lockdowns. Oh, sorry, the Australian city of Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world, and yet like nobody, like the majority agreed with it. Like it was really weird to see. I feel like, I think woke culture. Yeah, I agree with Flick here. Actually, it did start around Obama. Like, its roots are even older than that, I believe. And the current way it's manifesting is might have obviously been new, but yeah, I think in the US there's now a lot of changes there, so perhaps we will see a lot more pushback even in Australia, the UK, Canada. There's the other countries in the Anglosphere. We'll see a lot change there as well. So, all right, cool. We have hit 2 hours and 30. I will stop the stream in a in a second. And yeah, I'm glad everyone was able to catch the stream. If you're just joining, feel free to rewind, check it all out. There's a lot discussed that would have been quite fun. And yeah, I'm very glad I was able to run the stream again. Thank you again for all your support. Thank you for watching my normal videos as well on top of the live stream. I always appreciate your likes, your subscriptions, your comments on my streams. I certainly do read all your comments, especially if you do comment on them very frequently. I do get familiar with with all of them. So yeah, thanks again. Hopefully I'll see you guys next week. Hopefully on a weekend or maybe even Thursday, but I will let you all know. And with that, we'll end for today. Have a good evening, a good morning, good afternoon, if that's what's happening where you are. I'll catch you next time.
golden haze of a broken dawn. Steel towers hum, but the wild runs on.